Hi everyone. In this video, I will be talking about Fabric licensing. There are n number of other videos and tutorials available on YouTube about Fabric licensing, how it works, what are different type of licenses are. So I will be touching that as well. But one of the core thing what I will be covering in this video is how licensing work in production scenarios, right? What are challenges faced while using different type of licensing, how to choose the best licensing for Fabric, and then what I've done, I will be dividing this video into n number of parts. So let's have a look. First, we will cover on very shortly about types of licenses, per user licenses, and capacity based licensing. Then we will look for licensing relationship and use cases, like for example how free pro PPU licenses based on the features, like sharing Power BI content, etc. Then how Microsoft incorporates Power BI as a core component, and how licensing requirement depend on the workspace capacity modes, right? And then we will be looking at how we can transition from P SKUs to F SKUs. Then we will have a look what F SKUs capacity units are, right? We will go into details because this is the most important part of this whole video. We will have a detailed explanation around the capacity and the compute power of Microsoft Fabric, right? How they will be allocated and consumed for Power BI datasets, SQL queries, data flows, etc. We will see how throttling, smoothing works. We will have a look at the recommendation from the cost optimization. And then what I've done, I have created 2 or 3 practical scenarios around different licenses, and then there are some recommendation around how we can avoid throttling. So basically, we will have a look around 3 or 4 scenarios. We will see in a lot of details around different challenges. So let's jump into bit detail now. As I was telling in introduction, there are 2 types of licenses. One is per user license. It means organization, if I want to use Power BI capacity, Power BI capabilities, I want to purchase license for myself, right? Or my company has to give license for me. So when we talk about per user license, there are 3 types of licenses. One is free license, right? Free license grants the basic access to create and view non-Power BI content in Fabric workspaces that are linked to the capacity. Users with free license can only view Power BI content in the workspaces with F64 and higher capacity if they have the viewer role. So this part is very important because it is covering 2 or 3 things which I want to cover in detail. So it covers what is Power BI content. There are 2 things we are talking about here, and what is non-Power BI content, right? So what we say by Power BI content, let's say we have a Power BI report. That's a Power BI content. What is non-Power BI content? It could be Lakehouse, it could be Warehouse, it could be Event House or something. It could be data pipeline, it could be data flow. So what this free user or free license user can do, it can view non-Power BI content, but it cannot view Power BI content. There is one exception. If this workspace is in F64 and above, then this free user can also view Power BI content. For anything below F64, and we will cover what F64s and everything are, right? It can only view non-Power BI content. This is important part. Now there is Power BI Pro license, which is again a per user license. Then let's say if we have a Fabric workspace, right? So again, there are 2 types of content, right? Power BI content, non-Power BI content. If we want to create Power BI content, then in the organization, at least one user should have Power BI Pro license. Now, when we talk about premium per user license, it includes all the features of pro license plus some advanced capabilities like AI, paginated reports, larger data model, etc. So this is per user licensing, and I'm hoping that it's clear, right? Three types of licenses: free, pro, and PPU. Now, when we go for capacity based licensing, so rather than organization purchase per user licenses, they can purchase the capacity and they can use this dedicated capacity for their different use cases, right? So when we talk about capacity based licensing, there are three types of licenses available at the moment. First is fabric capacity licenses, and this F64, what I was talking about, is F SKU, right? So this provides dedicated resources for all the fabric services, which includes Power BI, and Lakehouse, Warehouse, Event Hub, Data Flow, Data Pipeline, everything, right? All the fabric services. Capacities below F64 require Power BI Pro or PPU licenses for the users consuming Power BI content. Like I have explained it, while F64 and above allows for user to view content for free, like they don't need any license. Now there is PPU, right? But there is something called Power BI Premium Capacity License, that's called PSKUs. So these dedicated resources for Power BI workload with advanced capabilities like AI, paginated report, etc. But rather than per user licensing, organization purchase the capacity for the premium. The plan is that, okay, PSKUs will eventually move to FSKUs. At the moment, maybe a lot of people already know, there is one other trial licensing. So let's say people want to learn about Fabric. Microsoft is providing trial licenses. This is 60 days trial license, which gives you F64 capacity, where you can learn different stuff, right, about Fabric. And it's a limited, like it's not F64, it's a limited F64 in general. I think we have covered it. If we have free license, create non-Power BI content, yes. Pro license can create non-Power BI content, yes. PPU can create, yes. Can free license share non-Power BI content? No. But Pro and PPU can, yes. Can free license access premium features? No. Can Pro license access premium features? No. But only PPU can access free licenses. Important point here, and which is again very important, right? If we have premium content, right? Premium content means paginated reports, advanced AI related stuff. Only PPU can consume it. Pro and free cannot consume it, right? And that's why we have no here and no here. If we have a Power BI content in F64 and above, everyone, even free license, pro license, PPU can consume it, right? Free license is free, pro license is $10 per user per month, and PPU is $20 per user per month. If we talk about FSKUs, FSKUs allows organizations to scale resources based on their needs. For example, we can start on smaller capacities, which goes from F2 to F32. When we talk about F32 till F32, we need individual Pro and PPU licenses for Power BI users. Then we have larger capacities, which are F64 plus, that enables free users to view Power BI content, reducing cost for the organization, which have the lot of users who want to view the content. So if we talk about, let's take a tip here. If we have a small team needing advanced capabilities, let's say we have 5 people who needs advanced capabilities. So rather than we spend F64 capacity, we can purchase PPU instead of purchasing the full capacity. Large organizations with many viewers can save cost by F64 capacity and enabling free users to access the shared content. right? So now let's talk about integration with Power BI. So Microsoft incorporates Power BI as a core component. So licensing requirement for Power BI depends on the workspace capacity mode. We already covered it. I think I'm just repeating it here, so I'll skip it. But Premium and Pro are needed for workspaces below F64 and F64 and above. Even free users can see the Power BI content. If we look at it from the scenario point of view, which license to choose? So if we have small teams, right? So cost effective for fewer users. If we have less users than 250, then Power BI, and if you want to use advanced capabilities, then PPU is good. If we have bigger team, right, then we can go for F64. Because F64 is costly for small teams. If we have large organizations, F64 allows free users to view to Power BI content, so it's good, right? Then we have if we have advanced workloads, then we can go for PPU, but it's limited by shared capacity. If we go for F64, supported with dedicated resources and better performance. Okay, now when we talk about PPU, important part here is PPU, obviously it's an individual license, but it's operated on shared capacity, which can lead to performance bottlenecks, right? PPU is more affordable than F64. F64 starts at around 5,000 per month, right? PPU provides more flexibility for the organization that don't need full Fabric capabilities or have limited Power BI usage. Let's go ahead. Okay, I think F SKUs are the capacity with licensing. Okay, now important thing here, F SKUs can start from F2 and can go to F2048. But what F2 means, right? So here F is obviously Fabric and 2 means capacity units, right? So what capacity unit is, we will discuss it in details now. See, each F SKU provides fixed number of CUs. For example, F2 provides 2 CUs, F4 CUs, 4 CUs, and so on, right? Now, if we go further, I think we have covered this, that okay, it needs Power BI licenses. Okay, we will cover the capacity unit in 2 minutes, but what is the benefit of using F SKUs? First thing, it combines the Power BI premium features with broader Fabric capabilities like Synapse and AI, right? It is cost efficient because you can choose for pay-as-you-go model. It is scalable. It has advanced features, right? And it is dynamic resource management. So for example, you can pause and resume the capacities, and it can auto scale during the peak usage. That's where smoothing, throttling, and different concepts will come in picture. Now this is what I was talking about. What are capacity units? So for example, F2 has 2 capacity units, F4 has 4, but what are those, right? So capacity units quantifies the compute power available in Microsoft Fabric, right? It comprises of 3 things. First is your CPU, your input output, disk input output, and your memory. These all 3 is comprising of CPU or CU, right? Capacity units. Now, for the higher SKUs, the more compute power is available, allowing you to better handling the concurrent operation and complex workloads. Okay, so capacity units, now the interesting stuff is coming. Capacity units are consumed on a per second basis, and that's why they are often referred as CU seconds. What it means? What it means, right? It means that if you have a F2, right, it is giving you 2 CUs that we have already seen, but these 2 CUs are 2 CUs. It means 2 CU per second, right? Now, how many CUs per hour? So it will be 2 into 60 second into 60 minutes. That comes around 7200 CUs. And we will, I'm just showing you the calculation, but we will come to know what 7200 CUs means. In 24 hours, it will be 170 to 800 CUs, right? CU represent three things: CU power, memory, disk input output, right? Reading and writing data from storage like lake houses and warehouses will be counted in disk input output. Then memory, storing intermediate computation like Spark in memory computation. This is where memory will come in picture. And if you want to process the data queries and calculation, that's where the CPU power will come in picture. As we know that any operation we will do in Fabric will consume the CUs, right? So now, as we know that there can be, right, two types of operations. So for example, when you run a SQL query and when you are running a notebook, they are interactive operations. So user trigger actions like running SQL queries or refreshing Power BI visual. These operations consume CUs in real time and smooths over a short period. Like, we are not covering smoothing, but these operations consume CUs in real time, and I'll cover smoothing in few minutes. Background operations, they are operations like when we schedule the refreshes of data flows, semantic models, and all the background operations we schedule, the jobs and all, they will be CUs consumed in background operations will be in the longer period. AI workloads, advanced features like Copilot or integration with Azure OpenAI may require substantial computer sources, especially when using higher SKUs. Okay, let's talk about two important concepts, and we will keep touching on these concepts again. Throttling and capacity units, right? So we know about F2, let's say F2. F2 is equivalent to 2 capacity unit per seconds, right? So it means 7200 capacity units in an hour. Let's say we purchase F2, right? So F2 will be, let's say, I think $0.36 per hour, kind of. I don't remember. We can have a look, right? What I'm saying here, that we have purchased the capacity now, and that capacity is giving us certain compute power and input output capabilities. What happened that if we use resources more than the resources available to us? So let's say at 9 a.m. in the morning, I have consumed resources more than 7200 CUs, which per hour, let's say from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., which is 1 hour, right? I have 7200 CUs available in this 1 hour, but let's say my jobs consumed 7800 CUs, or my jobs need 7800 CUs, not consume. Let's assume it. There can be two things happening here. Since I have only 7200 CUs available, my job can fail, right? Or what could be done, right? Since I need these 600 extra CUs, these extra CUs can be bought from future, right? I have 24 hours. So if I look at this now, I have 7200 CUs in 1 hour, but in 24 hours, how many CUs I have? I have 170 to 800. So if I need 600 CUs extra in that 1 hour, 9 to 10 a.m., can I purchase or can I borrow 600 CUs from my 24 hours allocated limit? Yes. Yes, right? So what it means that if any particular time you need some extra CUs, you can borrow the CUs from future, right? And then these extra CUs will be smoothened for next 24 hours or next 5 minutes based on if you are using interactive job or your background job. For background job, smoothing will be 24 hours. For interactive job, it will be 5 minutes. I'm making sense, right? But what happened that you consume 170 to 800 CUs, more than 170 to 800 CUs continuously, right? So it means, let's say 9 to 10 a.m. you consumed 800 CUs, 10 to 11 you consumed 8000, and so on. Then what Microsoft says that if you keep continuing doing it, there will be a throttling mechanism. So it means your operation will be throttled. You cannot keep borrowing from future. There will not be smoothing again and again, right? So let's see what happens, right? So if your workload exceeds the available capacity unit within given window time, then there will be two types of throttling. A delay of 20 seconds, around 20 seconds is introduced in the new interactive request. For example, when you run a SQL query, you enter, the SQL query might be run after 20 seconds. If you overuse the persist over the extended period, let's say for 1 hour, request may be rejected entirely. Microsoft Fabric will always give priority to the interactive task. Scheduled operation like refreshes may be delayed or fail if there aren't enough CUs available. This is throttling. I'm hoping that it makes it clear, right? And I'll cover more about throttling and smoothing in details. What smoothing is? Microsoft Fabric uses smoothing algorithms to average the capacity unit usage over time. Interactive operations are smoothed over a short period, 5 minutes. Background operation is smooth over a longer period, 24 hours. This ensures that short-term spikes, let's say 9 to 10 a.m. in our case, what we have in the example, don't immediately trigger the throttling, but sustain the overuse. So let's think about in a practical scenario how throttling works, right? So let's create a scenario here. In this scenario, we have a mixed workload, we have a data flow, data pipelines, and interactive queries. And in this scenario, what we are doing at the moment is we will see how throttling will trigger, how smoothing will trigger, right? So here we have a F64 capacity that provides 4 capacity units per second, which translates to 40 CUs per minute, 400 CUs per hour, 345, 600 CUs per day, right? And into our workload, we have a data flow refresh that starts at 9 a.m. Our data flow consumes, let's say, 1 CU per second, that is 60 CUs per minute. And then data flow runs for 10 minutes. So it means the total CUs are consumed as 600 CUs. Now, when we go for data pipeline, it also triggers at 9 a.m. It consumes 2 CUs. Total CUs consumes are 1200 CUs in 10 minutes. So it means your data flow runs for 10 minutes, data pipeline runs for 10 minutes. Then we have interactive queries in Power BI. So let's say user runs an ad hoc query on the Power BI during this time, like between 9 to 9:10 a.m. User runs the ad hoc query on the Power BI during this time. Each query consumes 0.5 CUs per second. with an average of 6 concurrent queries. So let's say 6 users are running queries, right? So there will be 120 CUs per minute in that time, right? So if we see what our combined workload is, data flow consumes 60 CUs, data pipeline consumed 120 CUs, and interactive queries consumes 180 CUs. So total is 60 CUs per minute, right? And available capacity is 240 CUs. That's what it is here, right? 240 CUs per minute. How much we are consuming? We are consuming 360. How much extra we are consuming? We are consuming here. So when we look at it, we have 360 available in F4. Sorry, 240 available in F4, and we are consuming 360. So if we do the mathematics, our 120 CUs extra we are consuming between 9 to 9:10 a.m. right? So it means that these 120 CUs should be borrowed from somewhere, else our query will fail, and this is where the smoothing will happen. So what smoothing will do, Microsoft Fabric applies smoothing to distribute these 120 CUs over time and prevent immediate throttling, so it won't stop the job. Interactive workload are smoothened for 5 minutes. If you keep doing it, it will do it for 5 minutes, what I explained there. And background workloads, pipelines, data pipelines, data flows and pipelines are smoothened over a longer period. Now how smoothing will work? For the first few minutes, smoothing averages out the spike of CU usage by borrowing capacity from the future time windows. Interactive queries are prioritized over the background task. If the excess demand is short-lived, smoothing may prevent throttling entirely. It won't happen, but when the throttling will kicks in, like what happens, and when the throttling will, if the excess demand persists beyond this smoothing can handle, for example, sustained overuse for more than 5 minutes, throttling is triggered in stages. Stage 1, interactive delays, new interactive request delay 20 seconds, and background task, scheduled task will delay, slow down, and if it continue doing it, then the stage 2 will initiate it, in which we have interactive rejections. If overuse continues over an hour, new interactive queries will be rejected entirely. For 5 minutes, there will be delay. For 20 seconds, if we keep doing it, there will be rejection right away. Then, and the background task may still be processed but slower pace. Stage 3, capacity freeze. If you sustain overuse continues for full day, Fabric freezes all the operations and capacity until usage drops below limits, right? So we have covered this. Okay, so now what could be done if this is going on for the longer period, right? The recommendation: schedule data flow refreshes and pipeline during off-peak hours with fewer interactive queries. So it means split the workload, right? Monitor the capacity usage. So there is app available in Fabric capacity monitoring app. Track the CU consumption and identify the bottlenecks. If it goes on, please upgrade to F8 if the workload frequently exceed F4 limits continuously. Configure auto scaling to temporarily allocate additional resources during peak demand periods. Now, one thing what I would like to cover here is how many CUs are used for different operations, right? This is just a guidelines. For example, a data refresh with a complex Power Query transformation might consume between 2 to 4 CUs per second for the duration of the refresh. An interactive query triggered by clicking the slicer may use 0.5 to 1 CU per second. Data pipelines, this is official documentation. Data pipelines will consume 1.5 CUs per hour of execution for copy activities. And for orchestration activities, for example, triggers, lookup, control flows, it will consume 0.056 CUs per activity run. Example, if a pipeline activity with one copy activity running for 30 minutes, how much CUs will it will consume? 1.5 CUs per hour into 30 minutes. So it will consume divided by 2, right? 1.5 divided by 2, that is 0.75 CUs. If the pipeline include 10 orchestration activities, so one orchestration activity or one activity with 0.056, so it will be 0.56 CUs. Now data flow Gen 2s with standard compute, that is for transformations, will consume that it is expensive, 16 CUs per hour. High skill compute, lakehouse staging will use 6 CUs per hour. Data movement will use 1.5 CUs per hour for execution, same as pipelines. Notebooks. Okay, SQL databases are, for example, SQL query execution, the proportional to the number of vcores. For example, we have F64 and F64 has 24.5 vcores. So a complex SQL query that runs for 10 minutes might use 0.5 to 1 CUs per second depending on its complexity. Same goes for notebooks. Notebooks use Spark processing, and Spark behind the scene uses Spark cluster, and the CUs depend on which cluster are you on, right? So notebooks running on Spark job with a medium complexity might consume 2 to 3 CUs per second during the duration of the run. Real-time analytics will use KQL queries. For example, streaming data might consume 1 CU per second depending on the data volume. Power BI, let's say data refresh in Power BI runs for 20 minutes at the average of 30 CUs per second, so it will consume and it consumes for 20 minutes, so it will be 3600 CUs, right? So how it will be 20 minutes 3 CUs per second, and then we have how many minutes into 20, 1200 into 3, 3600 CUs, right? So if we okay, before I jump ahead, let me go to the Fabric community. I'm actively answering few questions in Fabric community. One interesting question came today is, I don't understand how the Fabric capacity works, specifically around when capacity utilization resets, right? So what this user was saying, that okay, my Fabric SKUs F4, looking at the Fabric capacity matrix, I'm consuming a lot of resources using data flow Gen 2. I'm mainly expanding JSON arrays and hiding columns. By my calculation, F4 is equal to 4 CUs. That would give me 345, 600 CUs in 24-hour period. My data flow Gen 2 utilizes around, let's say, maximum 193k USAT. Why I'm running out of my capacity, right? Now here, the same thing what I've explained in last 30 minutes, right? Each Fabric SKU such as F4 provides the fixed number of compute resources. For F4, we have 4 CUs available at any given time to handle the workloads like data flows, data pipelines, etc. Fabric uses smoothing mechanism to distribute the CU usage over time. For interactive operations, smoothing occurs every 5 minutes. For background operations, it occurs in 24 hours, right? And then I went ahead and explained a pipeline that consumed approximately 0.3 CUs, a data flow Gen 2 that consumed approximately 2.67. Power BI, let's say, is consuming 0.5 CUs. So the total direct CUs is 3.5 CUs. With other background activities, it will be around 4 CUs. And that's why the utilization is 100% utilization for that particular day. So this particular user was showing us the graph as well. Okay, it might be later. So then he came back to us that, okay, understanding later better, I'm still troubled what I think should be available to me as a capacity per day. What Fabric tells me that I'm consuming, and why should I give an in credit position? I'm running out of the capacity. So this is where this borrowing and smoothing is again coming in picture. So Although it seems like that you are not consuming your daily limit of 345 CUs, 345k CUs, but you are still running out of the capacity. It means that consumption of 193k CUs reflects the total smooth usage of your workload over the day. This number does not necessarily mean that you have hit the theoretical limit of 345k. However, if your workloads frequently exceeds the instantaneous 4 CUs per second, Fabric will start borrowing from the future capacity. This borrowing can lead to running out of the capacity even before reaching the daily limit. And that's where the theoretical daily limit assumes that usage is evenly distributed across all the seconds. It doesn't mean that, okay, you can use these many CUs all together in one go. No, it means that it is assumed that this you will be using on an average 4 CUs per second. Sometimes you can use extra and it will go for a spike and smoothing, but that's what this 3, 4, 5, 6, 0 means, right? If your workload creates spikes, you will quickly deplete available capacity. Borrowing from future intervals leaves less capacity for the subsequent operation, even if your total usage is below the daily allowance, right? One thing, let's cover one more thing which I missed. Fabric costing. Fabric licensing cost, something like this. So this is very simple costing and it's very self-explanatory documentation, right? And this is for Central US, but you can select your own reason here. F2 means 2 capacity units. It will go for 262 if you go for pay as you go, and if you go for reservation, let's say you want to reserve it for 1 year, then you can go for 156. It's very simple, right? One thing which is important, that the storage will be extra. So the storage is not part of the CUs. CUs is only comprising of 3 things: memory, input output, and CPU. Storage or your hard storage will be different. That's called your 1 leg storage, and that's your very cheap $0.0323 per GB, right? So I think we have covered a lot of things. One thing to learn about all these things is how I learn all these things, right? Obviously, when you work on the client's side production like scenario, you will learn it. But if you don't have client exposure, one of the cool thing about this Fabric community is you can literally, this person, like everyone who's asking question, they're asking practical questions, and you can go to this community, you can search for whatever you like. For example, let's say I want to learn Fabric licensing, right? Something like this, and I'll say enter. Now anything what would be there for Fabric is Fabric licensing free, F64 and Power BI Pro. And see, when you see a tick here, it means somebody has answered it, right? Power BI license even with MS Fabric F SKU. Somebody is asking. Let's see this quickly, right? Somebody's asking what is asking that, okay, I'm trying to generate a Power BI report on MS Fabric. However, I'm getting the message below: upgrade to the paid Power BI license. However, I'm using F64 SKU. Why do I still need a Power BI license to create my reports? Let's see. With Power BI free license, you can create and publish paginated reports only in my workspace. You would require a Power BI Pro license to publish the paginated report in the other workspaces, right? I mean to say, this is one example. What I would suggest for any practical scenario based learning, please do use it, right? I'm very active on these communities, and more than people learn from me, I learn from them. Right? This is a great way to learn any new technology. Um, I'm hoping that this video made licensing bit clear. Uh, if not, then do ask me questions in the comments. I would like to learn about how you guys are using Fabric, where you guys are seeing the challenges. Please do comment and we can create a collaborative learning environment. Thank you. Really appreciate your time.